Welcome back, everyone, to this week's episode of Galactic Reviews, where we are going to go over the brand new release, Gladiator 2. Just came out November 22nd, I believe. I was really excited for this movie. I thought this was going to be a fun movie, and then I went and watched the movie. If it wasn't a full-on continuation of the first movie, I think it would have been okay. It had pretty much a one-to-one plot of the first movie, and I think that was its biggest downfall. I think if they just decided to name this a different title instead of Gladiator and change some of it so it didn't correlate to the first movie, I think it would have been a better movie instead, been a good standalone movie instead of trying to live up to the expectations of the first Gladiator and then being an almost identical copy
Mm.
of it for its plot, just about. That and for how I don't like it because I just feel like the first one ended very well, ended with you thinking, okay, it's going to be now the rise of Rome, and then this one comes in and just undermines the whole ending of the first movie, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I was not a big fan of that. I just don't see much to talk about with this movie, with its plot, mostly because it's very similar to the first movie and the historical people they put in there. Their personalities are kind of this. Oh, no, their personalities are pretty much identical to what they were, eh, kind of in historical that we know of, but the way about they went to portray these historical figures was more Hollywood. I can't. What is it? More of a Hollywood standpoint and viewpoint, just for entertainment.
Yeah.
Um, which was a little disappointing, but I get it. To keep it entertaining, kind of. It's just a very difficult movie to grade since it's a 100% continuation of the first movie, and it's the same plot roughly, and you're trying to be better than Russell Crowe. They have a lot of things going against him with this movie. So it's really difficult to look at this movie and see it as a movie for itself with that. And because of that, I would have to give this a 5 out of 10 because there's just way too many similarities for me for this movie.
Just out of curiosity, what would you give the first movie if you
The
had to rank
first
that?
movie,
Yeah.
oh, I'm a huge fan of that movie. I would probably give that an 8.5. I've watched that movie a lot. I just really enjoy it. Russell Crowe did all of the actors in that movie did a great job. And then I'll get into kind of my spiel of the actors in this movie. I think, well, I guess I can do it now. I feel like they were underused in a way. I feel like they had a lot of good actors, but they weren't used to their full potential, especially with the main character. I don't know what it was about him. I guess it's just me comparing him again to Russell Crowe and how Russell Crowe held his character, and then this one just kind of seemed he didn't have as much impact on me as Russell Crowe did for his movie for Gladiator. Yeah, I didn't get attached to this character at all. He was just kind of there and everything happened around him. I got more attached to the siblings than I did with him. I got
Mm.
more attached to what is his name? The
Macronus?
what?
Macronus? You talking about Denzel Washington's character?
Yeah,
Macronus, I think is his name.
Macronus. Than I did with the main character. So I don't know if it was just the writing or just his portrayal of it. Maybe a little bit of both. I'm not really sure. I haven't seen it. I don't think anything else he's been in, so I can't really compare it to anything. But yeah, I think that was another big disappointment of mine. with this.
I will agree on with Zach on a few points. I did think, as he mentioned, I did think they kind of tried to copy it a little bit too much in some areas, as far as like story wise, and that kind of hurt the main character. Like they try to give the main character the same pitfalls of his wife dying, and all that stuff. But I think the problem is, whereas the first one kind of did that one well, this one kind of missed the mark on that. You didn't quite get as attached to him in the beginning. You didn't quite see him like go through all the strife that he did in battle and then have that undertaking. Instead, it was right into the battle and that undertaking of losing his wife. So I think that kind of didn't work as well. I will agree that it does copy it, the same plot line for the first one, but I do think it does enough of a twist, especially more towards the end where they made it its own thing. And I will agree that you kind of need to watch the first movie to watch this one, but it is a sequel. So
I
like
mean, yes, it's a sequel, but
yeah,
it's
it wouldn't be able to be a movie on its own.
I think it could in the fact of all they have to do is just get rid of the name Gladiator, get rid of the whole premise of the first movie, and just make it of he was a king who his mother there was a revolution or whatever. His father died. He was young. She sent him away to keep him safe, and he's now coming back through a gladiator to reclaim the throne.
Yeah,
100% they could have made this a standalone movie,
it could have
in
been,
my
but I don't think
opinion.
it would have had the same impact as it
Um,
did. And I would think
the
they would
only
have had to make
reason
the
why
movie a
it
lot
had
longer in order to
the
explain all
only
that.
reason why it had any impact for this movie is because it was named Gladiator 2.
No, I thought the
I feel
premise was
like
good.
I feel like if it wasn't called Gladiator 2, I feel like it wouldn't have been as people wanted to go watch it as much,
Hmm.
but I still think it would have been a better standalone movie than a sequel to Gladiator, personally.
Hmm. I disagree. I think it was a decent sequel. I don't think it was a great sequel, but I think it was a decent enough sequel for the first film. I will agree with you on the fact that they did not explain in a good way how exactly it went from Maximus's dream being fulfilled, and then in 16 to 18 years, all of a sudden that dream just suddenly goes by the wayside. I would like to have gotten a better explanation as to that, and how like these two other emperors just all of a sudden just showed up. Like that just seemed random. Like a lot of that wasn't explained, and I have a problem with that. As weird as the emperors were, as the film went on and we found out that Denzel Washington's character was really the villain, I found more sympathy for the emperors as being pawns than I thought I was going to. And I will say the villain for this movie was masterfully done, because usually I can spot a twist villain. I think this one
Denzel
was done
Washington
well.
I will say he did a great job for his role in this movie.
Yeah, this movie did a good job with its villain. I will agree that
Yes.
this movie also doesn't quite do whereas the first film has like wonderful speeches that Maximus makes for the arena. The Lucius does not get any of those.
I mean, he just had one speech and it wasn't really much of a speech.
No, the speeches and points at contention where the language was necessary to be very in depth, very encouraging, and very like thought provoking were just bland as frick.
Yeah.
Um,
Another big one, not to cut you off, was the fact of every time he goes into the arena with groups of people, they always manage to listen to him, and I still don't understand why they listen to him.
yeah.
They're
Uh,
trying to make him a leader where people listen to him, but we don't see how gains the respect of these gladiators
yeah,
before the ending of it.
and from what I could gather, most of those gladiators were with him in the gladiator camp that was by underneath Macronos.
Yeah.
So I think they should have conveyed showing him like earning their respect in that thing, in that sort of area, if they were going to do it in the main arena better. And they kind of did with him
I
like fighting that
think they,
monkey, but they
yeah.
didn't do it. They didn't show it well enough. And I think
Well,
that would have been
he
better if
was
they
the only
conveyed it
one,
more.
yeah, he was the only one taken from that monkey arena. So none of they knew he beat a monkey, but none of them knew how or like anything about him. They didn't learn anything about him until he fist fought the dude. And even then, that's like I don't see why they would be so impressed about that. There was nothing that really impressed me with him for that. They focused more on the other plot of the movie and kind of left him as he is the gladiator. Just he's going to be not kind of you need to watch the first movie, and that's kind of what he is. Just we don't see the development like we saw from the first movie of how he earned his respect.
Yeah. And I think that could have been better shown in order to convey that. So I will agree with you on that. But I did enjoy the film for the most part. I will say that. I thought like I said before, I thought the emperors were the twin or the I guess the brother emperors were good. I thought Macronos was a good twist villain in the movie. I don't remember Aurelius, I think is his name.
Yes, I believe so.
I liked him. I didn't really care that much for the return of one of the governors. I really didn't care that much for it.
Oh,
I forget his mom's
Marcus,
name. Yeah,
Lucilla.
hmm.
yeah. I didn't really care that much for either of those characters, but I mean, they
I'm
weren't also
more
there for
dis.
that. They weren't also
Yeah,
there for that much either, so I'm not too disappointed in that.
honestly, his mother was just there to connect the dots of the plot, and I
Yeah,
wasn't a big fan of how they killed her off with everything that went down.
I
Um,
wasn't too opposed to it. I thought it was a
I
good
mean, it
kill off.
made
I think it just would have worked better if she was more involved with,
like
if they involved
nothing.
her more with the story and stuff. But I also get
I mean,
that
I
they
suppose,
were limited
but
to what they
nothing
could do.
felt like whenever anything happened to this main character, nothing felt. You didn't feel really, or at least I didn't feel any sympathy for him. He
I
didn't
think
have
that's
the same
mainly,
emotion.
I think that's mainly because
He just seemed kind of
well, they detached
unfazed,
him from,
not unfazed, but
they detached him so much from what he was in the first film that it was hard to kind of bring him back. And I don't think they did that in a good enough way. They did a good enough job of detaching him from like his family ties and everything, but then they tried to bring it back in such a rush that it didn't quite have that
I yeah,
effect.
well, I
So
mean,
you don't quite feel the
even okay,
loss.
even with kind of when his wife died, it's his wife died. He goes to try to find her, gets knocked unconscious, but like we don't see the same grieving we did like for when we saw the previous Gladiator, Russell Crowe's, in the emotion and impact and the grieving he had. And even when he was faced with the person he blamed for killing his wife, he found out it was his mother's new husband and then just gave up on that whole conquest for revenge. It was like,
Yeah.
then what was the whole purpose?
I mean, that could have been better explained, but I could see where that could happen. It just needed to be better
I mean,
explained as
yes,
well. So
yeah,
I'm not, yeah, it's just, I still think it's a okay film. It's not great by any means. And I
yeah.
still enjoyed the film as a sequel. It wasn't as good as the first one. Overall,
What would you? Oh, yeah,
probably give
I
this
was
a
about to ask.
6.5,
Okay,
and I probably give the first one an 8. So
all right, Andrew.
I'll knock out the first one first. I give the first one a 9. I'd seen it before. It's been a long time since I've seen it, but I know how to rewatch it.
Yeah.
It just does everything right. It cemented itself as a classic pretty quickly. Cemented Russell Crowe as a fantastic actor. Cemented Joaquin Phoenix as one of the best actors of our generation. Like the soundtrack is iconic. The last song of the credit scenes is iconic. Just the story itself was so heavy hitting. Um, Granted,
It had a lot of emotion.
I've got some complex feelings about Gladiator 2. I think it
Okay.
started like the first third
30
of the
minutes.
to a half of a movie, of half of the movie, was a solid 7 or 8 out of 10. And then it just kind of lost itself the second half. Um,
Yeah.
Kind of compliment sandwich it. It had a great premise. The actors were fantastic. The acting, the cinematography. I love that we're bringing back practical effects. Instead of relying so heavily on everything being generated to save money. This just
Well,
looks so
all
good.
of the animals, the water were all CGI'd.
No, the monkey
Yes.
wasn't real.
Well,
No.
yes, like but we're still bringing back like practical
Okay.
scenery,
Okay.
like
Yes. No,
fire,
that
like
is true. But
actual
like
like fire and action
that part,
instead of
yeah.
just
Okay.
animating the fight in
Yeah.
the
No, I
background.
see
Yeah.
what you mean now. I see what you mean now. Yeah.
I feel
Okay.
lied to. The
The
horse
things that are
wasn't real.
reasonable to, yeah.
The horse was real.
Not
The
the
Yeah.
monkeys,
monkey.
the rhinos, the
Mhm.
sharks, they weren't.
Ah,
Yeah, practical effects, practical
So
stunt,
close.
practical
so
works.
close.
Um,
What about that little
I've
monkey thing on his shoulder?
yes,
I think that
yes,
one
thank
was real.
goodness,
I think that one
Okay.
was
thank
real.
goodness.
Okay, good.
Um, Dada. Um,
He had to be. I mean, he was named what? I forget. I'm sorry, Andrew. Continue. I don't mean to
Counselor.
keep cutting you off. Yes.
This movie had a lot of things going well for it. I think where it went wrong is it really just tried to rely too heavily on the first movie. They took away from Lucius's character by constantly bringing up Maximus and constantly trying to compare him to Maximus. They didn't let him have his own story and his own self. I didn't like how they kind of like changed his character a little too quick. They set this character up as having this deep, immense rage, and that's what pushes him forward. And his rage is going to help him topple down Rome, um, even to the point where he's like, "You're not my mother. I don't know you. Get out of my face." And then just kind of flips on it, with not enough buildup to make it feel as justified as it should, especially with the fight with the general. He wanted to kill this man more than anything. And all of a sudden, just being like, I love your mom. He's like, ah, we're bros now. Um, I get that it means he starts to get a bigger picture just of his own rage, but I think it was too fast, his revelation of that. Um,
If it would have made sense if he did like a fatal wound or something
mhm.
to this guy, and this guy said, "I know who you are, so I won't kill you," and says his actual name.
Or they would
I
like
mean,
bond over the fact that they hate the death. Um,
Or he says, "I was trying to betray the emperor," blah
mhm.
blah blah.
he kind of
Something
already
needed
said
to happen more in that.
he said that in the arena though. He said, "I know who
I
you
mean,
are."
that is true, but it just
But like mid fight when adrenaline's pumping, I don't think that change would have happened that
no.
quickly
I no.
with the setup that he is this rageful character.
Yes, all
Yeah.
he wants is to avenge his wife, and this is the guy who allegedly, well, who caused her
Mhm.
death.
I mean, you
The
could also
only
see it.
female archer in that whole army, and it happened to be his wife.
Yeah. Well, it also could be taken into this way, like he let him get all his adrenaline out and then had enough time to kind of explain
Yeah,
Even
but it's
still,
a
himself.
fight to
it
it's a
doesn't
fight to
hit.
the death. I don't think his
Doesn't hit.
adrenaline would
Well,
leave
no,
that like that.
he lets him get his rage out, and
But
then
it still doesn't hit. It
I
still
mean,
doesn't.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, I can see where they were trying to go with this,
Well,
with at
yeah,
least that concept.
that's why I'm
yeah,
not bashing it. I'm just pointing out the things that I didn't particularly enjoy.
Yeah.
I
yeah.
didn't like. I wasn't a huge fan of the ending,
I mean, the
particularly
dude
because
ran through.
the f- the first one was so heavy. Tragic hero saves Rome, saves the day, uh, saves the memory of his wife, and then gets to go meet them. Kind of his own tragic but happy ending.
Mhm.
Um, which kind of this first movie kind of spits on it because it's literally like it all fell down even further in the gutter in the span
Yeah,
of
everything about it
16
didn't make
years.
it. Yeah,
With at least not enough explanation as to how they got there. They just kind of
if
skipped.
Yeah.
if we got a backstory or like a 10-15 minute backstory where we see the main character as a young kid or something, more than him just escaping and that's it. I feel like we would have gotten more of an explanation. I would have been okay with a few more things.
Yeah. But the
This
ending
movie,
just, I think my problem with the ending is it just doesn't have the weight of the first one. It doesn't really even come close.
yeah,
The villain, Denzel Washington, was fantastic. His acting
Yes.
was good. The setup for his character was good. The whole plotting and conniving all the way to the top, that was fantastic. Even the fight at the end, I thought it was like a good fight. Like, oh shoot, he can fight.
Yeah,
Um,
the only thing I didn't like about that is they let this guy, who's obviously not wearing any Roman armor, come through the whole army to make it to their leader and not do anything
yeah, like
about
why
it.
you let him go? But I,
Obviously, they they would have stopped him
well, they
way
but
also
I
before he
probably
think
would
even
have
reached that
stopped.
point.
They would have also probably stopped at Macronus at that point as well.
what I think would have given this movie more weight is if instead of them having oh, the general, I'm forgetting his name. I know it starts with a L. Um
I don't
if
remember.
instead of having him die in the arena, they kind of
Aurelius?
had like a team.
Yeah,
No,
no,
no, that wasn't his name. It was um uh,
just
Wasn't
call
that
him
his
by
name?
the actor's name at this point.
yeah, Acacius.
Acacius. Oh,
General
You were
Acacius.
close, close
yeah.
enough.
Instead of
Casey.
having them kill Acacius in the arena, I feel like the ending an ending I would have preferred more is if they kind of like teamed up. They had this fight. It was a lot more
That's what I
of a
was expecting.
stalemate. They worked together to try to save Rome. They kind of grow this bond, even if over a short period of time, but grow the bond over hating the bloodshed of Rome, haunting both of them, how sorrowful Acacius
Hmm.
has felt over the deaths he's caused, not thinking it's right. And then Acacius does still end up dying, but that would have carried more weight and change to the to Lucius.
Yeah.
I
It felt
was
like it,
expecting that when he decided not to kill
Hmm.
Acacius, that they were going to somehow break out and have this whole thing, and it just didn't happen. Also, with all the archers that they had around the perimeter, why did none of them have swords to hold back the people? They just turned around and held bows to people like this far away.
yeah.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be happening.
Yeah. But overall, I would give this movie a 6. I really did quite enjoy the first half. I thought
The
it was
first
great.
half, the first half was
Um,
good. The villain
I
was
think
great.
I think it
It
just
was
kind of
just
the
everything
plot
else.
itself just lost me. I
It
think
felt like
Drusilla being in there was unnecessary. But to
mm,
compliment Sandwich it, everything else about it was fantastic. It was just the plot
Hmm.
itself that I was like, oh, well, this
Yeah,
doesn't live up to the first one.
yeah, it felt like for this movie that they tried to they knew the points that they wanted to go as far as storyline. They just didn't know how to get the story to go there.
yeah,
And
which
and it kind of
watching this
shows.
movie, it makes sense why for the last um 15, 20 years, I forget how old the first one is, they've been constantly shutting down the idea of making a second one because apparently this has been an idea since the first one came out,
Yeah. Well,
and they've
it
said no up until, well, a year ago.
probably up until they needed money.
I mean, they didn't need to make a second one. From what I was hoping from this trailer, from the trailers I watched, I didn't watch all that many. I was hoping it was quite a ways in the future. They had a new Gladiator champion, and they were trying to live up to this legendary hero from the first movie,
Yeah.
and kind of have some sort of something like that, not completely disregard the ending of the first movie and continue it 20 years later on.
Yeah, 6. I did enjoy it. It was fun. It was good. Just comparing it to the first one, this just has a lot less weight and meaning and impact, and it
Yeah.
doesn't stick with you as strongly as the first one does.
Yeah.
Other than
Yes.
that, they did a lot of things great. I quite enjoyed it. I enjoyed the choreography. Again,
I
well,
enjoyed the I enjoyed a lot of most of it besides the script, to be perfectly honest. I thought they did a great job in just about everything else but the script. So,
I think half of the script was great. I just think
yeah, I
they
mean,
just
well, yeah. The first
brought up
half was
Maximus too
good.
much.
Yeah.
Some of
The
the writing
second
was
half was spotty.
some of the dialogue wasn't as good. as it should have
It
been.
didn't have as much, like I said, the first movie was 100% emotion based and emotion driven, and this one wasn't.
This one tried to play up to too much nostalgia and instead of trying to create its own story
The
that
main
Yes.
the
company.
main thing that I did not like was that they made Maximus his father. That was not
Yeah,
at all in the first movie.
No,
They had
that's what,
established who
yeah.
his father was, and then all of a sudden, just to give his character a little bit more oomph behind him, they're like, "Your father's Maximus."
Honestly, they could
Maximus
have, they didn't need to
didn't
say
wasn't
that.
like that.
Didn't need to say that. They needed to say was, and he did say it. He watched Maximus fight and he respected him as a hero, a warrior, a
Hmm.
yeah,
father figure, whatever you wanted to say. And
You
that would
are the
have been
kind of
just as
man
fine.
he is. You remind me of a younger Maximus. That's all they needed.
yeah.
Pretty much. That's all they needed. And he could have said, and that's who I wanted to be, or that's who I was trying to be, which would have been so much better than saying he was his father.
Anyways, thank you for watching this episode of Galactic Reviews. Join us next week when we'll be watching Venom 3, The Last Dance. And we'll see you next time on Galactic Reviews.